Hello there. Welcome, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. We are now live on multiple platforms. I believe we're on New Realities. We're on Facebook. We also are on Portal to Ascension, of course. Just checking the stream here. So the stream is actually not technically supposed to start for another 13 minutes, but I couldn't contain myself. I wanted to go ahead and just begin anyway, because I feel while we're waiting for Alan to come on, while we're waiting for Joan to come on, I'm going to go ahead and play a couple of the videos that have been released on News Nation on YouTube within the last couple of days. And these videos are just the updates on what's going on in the UFO world. So let's check and see who's joining us right now on YouTube. Okay, let me just hold on one second. Let me send Joan the link to get in here. All right. So welcome everybody to the Cosmic Chronicles. This is the UFO conference that we are putting out there. And I'll tell you why we, what inspired this. Some of you may have actually been following all the UFO information that's been dropping in the last month or so. If you have, go ahead and say yes in the chat. If you haven't, maybe say no, let it be known. Curious to know who's been following what's been happening in the last month. You have Joseph, yep. So we're starting officially. Guys, for all of you joining in and tuning in now, we were supposed to start officially in about 10 minutes, but I'm starting earlier because I want to show you guys a couple of videos and the updates. So a month and a week ago or so, we have a huge occurrence occurs in the UFO world. David Grush article on the debrief, an article with David Grush featured as a whistleblower gets released on, I think it was June 10th, June 11th. June 11th, we have an interview on News Nation about a UFO crash retrieval program that has been hidden from the world, from the US public and the world for decades. And a lot of the information that we've been discussing in regards to the secret space program, what's going on in Antarctica, the different UFO bases, that has been so much in the fringe for so long, has now come out to the surface more than it ever has before. And not just come out to the surface because, we've been seeing things coming out in the last few years, right? 5, 6, 7 years. But this was important because it shifted the story. The narrative was shifting now. We went from what are these things flying in the sky? What are these anomalous objects? What foreign government could be utilizing them? Are they drones, right? That kind of questions. But then also the aura of, well, there is no foreign adversary that could have such technology, to all of a sudden a complete and utter shift to non-human intelligences, and then the eventual, over the last month, conversation of extraterrestrial life and alien life, and even one individual, Joan of Angels is in the room, so I'll let her in. Even one individual, I forget who it was now, but one of the individuals, government officials saying that we need to be concerned about the extraterrestrial technical supremacy. So that is a conversation that is happening right now. So when this occurred a month and a week ago, Joan and I, and Joan I think is here, were in Amsterdam together, okay? And she could probably tell you, maybe this is the perfect time for Joan to jump on and let her how excited I got, where I created the 3-part series that some of you might have been a part of. And the series that I did was basically giving you a synopsis, a history of what's been happening with UFOs since 1850 or so, up until present moment. And the reason why I did that was I really wanted to just show how this has been something that's happened for so long, how it's been ridiculed by the mainstream, and what occurred and why it became something that was considered seriously. And also how to use a discernment, because there's so much distrust, right? Over the last 20 years or so, I would say that a lot of people who trusted the government, even maybe a little bit, it's completely flipped now, right? Shadowy government, not having trust in them. So when they come out with information like this, we're quick to assume that it's completely BS. They're trying to get money for some military program or coming up with some sort of level of why it can't be real. But so looking at our discernment for what's going on right now and dissecting the fact that, is there any truth to these claims? One of which is the fact that many whistleblowers, including Clifford Stone, has been speaking about a UFO crash retrieval team for so long. And something that's really interesting is that a lot of this information has now led people to say, are you telling us that the government has been lying to us? Well, that in itself is something that I feel in the drip disclosure world, they wouldn't really want us to start saying, right? Which is why they're dripping it in such a way without telling us the backstory, but all of a sudden something came out and now it's this whole, wait a second, who's lying to us? What are they doing? They have contracts with private aerospace companies, and those aerospace companies are private companies, so they can hold on to proprietary information and not tell the masses. This is the conversation we're at right now. So that's what inspired today's event. And Joan was there with me in Amsterdam when I was pacing back and forth, trying to figure out what to do about this. Joan, you're muted. Wait, I think yeah, go ahead.
Honestly, that Neil, I have never seen you so excited as when this broke, because listen, we've been kept, they talk about people like us who talk about UFOs as kind of quacks and crazy and conspiracy theorists, number one. So they try to discount. And so now that it's coming out in mainstream in a big way, but I remember, I don't know if I even told you that I was involved in a big UFO crash investigation in Kingman, Arizona. And we were investing I don't know if I ever told you that.
No,
we were investigating 3 crash retrieval sites, and we actually found them. We found one of them. We went over to it. There was all the evidence that the military had been there. There was all the radiation there. We could tell the exact angle that the UFO was actually stuck in. It's quite a story. But while we were there, every hour, these kind of trucks would come by and they'd kind of stop and question what we were doing. And they were always armed and kept encouraging us to go somewhere else. And so there's still intimidation when you want to investigate what's the truth. So, but yes, guys, Neil has been so excited to bring this material out now, more than ever, because, you've always been into this, but more than ever now. Yeah. Because now we need to know what the government is really going to tell us. Is it the truth? And how to use our discernment to really see
right. So this is honestly, Joseph is saying thank you so much for sharing, could listen and fellowship all day long. So actually, let's take a pause right here. Everybody on YouTube, Facebook, in the Zoom, before we get right into it all, which we're going to do very quickly, go ahead and say hello in the rooms. Like, let yourself be known if you want. Let's get the interaction going. It's always fun just to do this like we're all having a conversation together. So go ahead and check in with us if you are able to. So when it comes to what's happening right now, it is honestly the biggest thing that has ever happened in the disclosure movement, okay? And whether you feel that it is an agenda-oriented thing that has nothing to do with actual ET life, or you believe that this is, as one of the news stations said when an anchor broke character, and because they couldn't take the fact that this was so mind-blowing and said, just say it's aliens already, right? That's what one of the news anchors has said about this whole thing, right? Whether you believe it's one thing or another, both of those things are the largest things ever, right? The soft launch for extraterrestrial life, or a complete and utter awareness being spread about ET life when they're not actually trying to disclose it, right? Both of those have to lead us to have a question of what's going on. I personally feel, from all the information coming out and working with whistleblowers for so many years now, that this is actually about some real programs that are occurring, right? So that's why it's something that we need to have a discussion about more. We need to look at, use our discernment. But what's happening right now, it seems, is if we've already set a foundation now that extraterrestrial life exists, they're out there, there's non-human intelligence craft out there, and we're about to have a hearing about it on Wednesday. That is the foundation for 2023, right? What is about to happen next? Where are we going to head after that? That's kind of the question that we want to explore today.
I think that's great. It's a great perspective. The other day I read that they had just found these round, big stone balls that are made out of rock that are found in
Costa Rica.
Bosnia. I think they're found near Montenegro and Bosnia. They're huge balls, and all I can think of is some giant beings are rolling them down the street there. But there's so much evidence of alien life on the planet, of contact, buildings that were not built by human hands, couldn't possibly have been built by human hands. And perhaps this will lead to even more understanding of our own timelines here and what has been going on planet Earth. I think we all deserve to know that.
Right. Well, we definitely deserve to know that. I mean, this is the greatest story ever told. Like you and I were speaking about earlier today, and the Alan Steinfeld is in the room, so let's bring him on. As you and I were speaking about earlier today, this has to do with all elements of society: religion, spirituality, pharmaceutical companies, the medical, petrol, like Alan likes to talk about. They're not using gas-powered cars to get here. Electricity, all these elements. It goes into all fields of existence and reality, let alone consciousness. I feel on some level, we're all walking around just trying to figure it out on this earth, but pretending we know what we're doing, right? And it seems like these beings may have an understanding of why we're doing that. So this is just the beginning of what's going to unfold. Hey, Alan.
They know more of our history than we do.
Exactly.
Anyway, hi, Alan.
They know more about everything than we do, and there's forces in place that have kept us dumb, stupid, limited, shut down. And this is what's really being challenged with the disclosure movement. It's not so much about aliens, of course it is, it's about who we are as human beings. This is the key. This is the important moment, turning point in the history of the planet. So it
is exciting. So
it is exciting. We've been kept in the dark about who we are, where we came from, why we're here. Why is there forbidden archaeology, forbidden science, forbidden everything, forbidden technologies kept from us? So I think this is so important, not just that they exist, but it could open the doors for us finding out more of all these secrets.
It's a renaissance. It's a revolution that we are coming into. It is the moment in human history where everything changes. And now we're really at that moment of choice. We're really at that breaking point right now of, and we're coming into it this week. We're coming into it.
I know, huh? It's almost hard to, like, from what we're hearing now on the mainstream, we're hearing about different ET bodies, interaction with multiple extraterrestrials, governments having their own plans and agendas with these beings. It's almost hard to believe that they kept it hidden for so long when it seems like such a prevalent thing in our reality. Even I don't know if you heard, but a JFK document released today that referenced UFOs in his assassination. So I'm like, how deep does it go in regards to, is this one of the main narratives that maybe even dictates entire wars on the planet?
I think so. I mean, Linda Moulton Howe says that the wars are actually, World War II in particular was a proxy war for ET races fighting for control of this planet.
Wow, that makes sense.
I know there's so much to this, and that's why it's been kept at such a secret, at such an expense to humanity for the last 80 years, really, 80, even Roswell. It was already a cover-up going on. So
even ancient photographs show the presence of ETs, and paintings that were back in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s. You can see a UFO right there in the painting or in the photograph. So it's really interesting when you see something and then they tell you didn't see it. You saw it. They tell you didn't see it. So, as I was telling Neil before, I was involved in a UFO retrieval research. I guess we didn't retrieve it, but we did a lot of research on it on the Kingman UFO crashes. And while we were there, we were harassed by different, groups that would come by with guns to encourage us to move on.
Did they ever retrieve that UFO, John?
Oh, yes, they did. They retrieved two UFOs there. One came down and it landed in the ground kind of at an angle, 30-degree angle, and it was retrieved. And then and there were 4 beings that had been on the ship that stayed there with the ship and that were taken. And when they tried to retrieve it and they put it on the truck to take it near Area 51, the UFO was at this angle. And so they had to go back and get the ETs to come in and lower it down because it was actually at this angle. But within a week, there was another UFO crash within 10 miles of the first one. And it was suspected that this one came down to try to rescue their companions.
Right.
Wow. Did you see the craft itself, Joan?
I didn't see the craft itself. I saw evidence of the craft. So I was in the site where they had landed.
I think there's pictures of the Kingman crash going over the dam. What's that big dam that's out west? That is the Havasu Dam up there.
It could be that there were pictures. There's a great book by Harry Drew. He's the one I researched it with. He had a lot of evidence of what was going on. We found remnants that were left by the military that had been there during the retrieval. So it was Colonel Stevens that was part of that retrieval crew. And it was about 30 feet in diameter, the ship, and it had 4 crewmen that I think 2 of them were alive.
Wow.
Wow.
So
That's amazing.
You can check out the books by him. He has a lot of photographs on that.
It's very interesting. It seems that UFO crash retrievals seems to be really, really common, right? Like ever since even Roswell, San Antonio, and even did you hear about the Mussolini UFO crash that David Grush was speaking about? That was from 1933, right? Like one of the first ones.
Yeah, I mean they've probably been going on throughout history, but
retrieving them and reverse engineering them, probably around the 30s, maybe.
Yeah, and the thing is, the United States, as we'll hear from Grush, has a lot of these UFOs in their arsenal, in their control, and this has been kept from Congress, it's been kept from officials, but it hasn't been kept from private industry, where I think some of the technology was sold to private industry or
definitely
developed by private industry. And that's where it gets into constitutional issues.
What's the guy's name? Russ, last name starts with a C, the guy that did the interview on News Nation. So
Ross Coulter.
Okay,
yeah.
So he was saying that a whistleblower came out maybe 2 weeks ago and said that that a very large aerospace company in the US is attempting to get rid of their crashed UFO because of all the information that's coming out. And it's almost like that they're afraid that they're going to be held criminally accountable because they've had this thing for decades. So they've actually put it on the market to sell the technology so they no longer have it in their possession.
Well, there is a lot of criminality involved. I mean, people's lives have been threatened. And I mean, there's so much to this that as when this thing comes out, they either have to give amnesty to everyone or there'll be a lot of problems going on. So
they did pass the legislation as well recently to grant them amnesty, right? And I guess they feel that the amnesty is not enough protection for everyone to come out because they could still be kind of ridiculed or held accountable within the actual programs, But the legislation was that no more taxpayer money is able to be given to black budget programs. It's illegal for that now, right?
Well, it was always illegal.
That's the thing. You would think it was illegal, but because there was no law against it because they didn't know it was happening. So, so they were doing it. Yeah, exactly. And then with that, they said, okay, no more tax. If we find out any taxpayer money is being put on black budget programs, we're going to hold you criminally accountable. And then within that, they said, and if you're part of these programs, you now have amnesty to come to us and let us know. And supposedly, as per Marco Rubio, ever since this happened, many people are coming out and that they aren't even telling us who's coming out, but people are validating the story.
And it's all going to change this week, I think, July 26th. When they have a congressional hearing with some of these insiders. You want me to just play?
Yeah, let's play. Well, let me just ask you about that real quick, Alan. It was very interesting to note that it was David Grush, right? Who isn't, even though he whistleblowed kind of, he's actually a whistleblower of whistleblowers, right? Other people came to him. So it's interesting, like it's almost methodical in the way they do this. Like it's not the direct person. And then the other 2 people, they aren't even people in the programs. They're the ones that witnessed the UFOs through those first 2 occurrences which a lot of people are saying will actually reverse engineer craft and not actually extraterrestrial life. So it's like they're not really bringing out the people in these programs. They're bringing out people 2 or 3 times removed from it.
Well, yeah, it's true. And that's because there's people in control that are threatening people like Rush. If you come out, we'll do something to your family. It's so dark and diluted, and
Yes.
and there's so many levels of cover up going on. But on the 26th, let me just show you who's going to be appearing in front of Congress. It is there's a little News Nation, which has really been at the leading edge. Do you see this now on your screen there?
Yeah.
Okay, this is News.
There is drama behind the scenes of that monumental UFO hearing set for next week on Capitol Hill. 2 top lawmakers on the House Oversight Committee say they're getting stonewalled by the Pentagon. Representatives Tim Burchett and Anna Paulina Luna say they traveled to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida to get information from the military about these reported UFO sightings. When they arrived, they say there was no warm greeting, but rather the opposite. Representative Burchett going as far as to say the general they met with was, quote, arrogant. News Nation's Evan Lambert is live. Evan, has the Pentagon said anything about these claims?
I just want to say one thing. The military is running away on their own against the laws of Congress. He said the military was arrogant. The general they met was arrogant. It's like the military, and this is what Eisenhower said, you know, Joan, beware of the military-industrial complex. Eisenhower knew about UFOs, and it began to be runaway internal governments of their own making with the military. So these lawmakers are going to the military, and they are not being told the truth. And who does the military answer to except the government? But this is why it's so convoluted, I would say not evil, but it's just so controlled. So anyway, here we go.
I would say evil. I would say if you really look at the effect of this, it is evil. It is evil for all of us. We don't know, because, we don't know if they're dangerous or friendly. We don't know the intentions. And most of all, we don't have access to the advanced technology that the secret space program has, technology that could heal people. And benefit all of humanity. This is a crime against humanity that's being committed. And if we say we don't know if they're good or evil, well, if they weren't good, we'd know it by now. So, this is a situation among humans. We have to work out our internal struggles with our military, our government, and the people of Earth. And that's what I think these beings are waiting for. But here, let
me just jump in and say real quick what you just said, Alan, about they would have done something by now if it was a negative. So that it seems like that used to be a question that came out a lot, like, is this a threat? Is this a threat? But now when it's coming out, it's being met with the answer from Congress people and senators now, right? If this is like their response. If they were a threat, they would have done something by now because the evidence suggests they've been here for a long time. So it's very interesting, and it's so feels so good to know that we're moving away from the threat narrative into something greater.
Well, the only threat it is really is a threat to the military hold on the secret. It is a military threat, but just to the military, not to the people of planet Earth or the U.S. That's my feeling, So this is that's the irony of it. The military says it's a threat. Yes, it's a threat to the military, but not to the planet. That's so interesting. But anyway, listen to some more of this.
Elizabeth, they have not. We reached out this afternoon and have yet to hear back, but this is sure to come up in those long-awaited hearings.
That being
new questions for the Pentagon as the nation awaits a first-of-its-kind hearing on UFO sightings set for next week. We're learning behind-the-scenes details after members of Congress say they were stonewalled from accessing a Florida Air Force base where they were promised briefings on alleged sightings of UFOs by pilots.
The arrogance of this general was beyond belief.
And that's Tim Burchett, who's probably, my guess, he hasn't come out and experienced it because he is passionate. He's a Republican congressperson from Tennessee, but he is really at the forefront of poking for truth about this. And this is another woman, our a Republican senator from Florida.
And ultimately, even before we got down there, the Pentagon actually tried to cancel the field hearing. So we went down there, we were stonewalled. They would not give us access to testimony from some of the pilots. They were hiding.
They are denying testimony to the people of the United States. That's what's so awful about this. The government is, not the government, the military is at odds with the government. That is a constitutional crisis. That is major. That is like a coup going on, not to be overreactionary, but there's some kind of rogue element inside our own military at odds with the government. That's so much bigger than aliens. That is like a major, major issue.
I'm glad you pointed out that
We were
way.
told there was pictures.
Yeah, wait, go ahead, Joan. Yeah.
I'm just glad you're really emphasizing that this is sort of like a rogue element in the military
Mhm.
that is almost separate and under its own auspices than the government of the United States, which is also probably rogue right now too. But it is really important for us to understand that.
Yeah, it is such a major issue. And this, if only the newspapers, the mainstream would pick up on this would blow the whole thing wide open, but maybe they're being suppressed. I don't know why the New York Times, those people that really are here, they call the media the fourth estate, but they're not doing their job. So, okay, let's just hear the end of this.
Available, which we still haven't seen.
The sparks flew as Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee skewered the Pentagon for what other Republican members of the House Oversight Committee have called intentional efforts to shut Congress out.
And we're going to get to the bottom of it, dadgummit, whatever the truth may be.
I just want to say this is not Republican or the Democrats are joining with the Republicans. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, just came out speaking about we need the truth. We need the truth about non-human intelligence, I think is a word he actually used, which is major. So this is not a division of parties. This is the Congress against the military. That is so weird. That is historic and never has happened in the time this government. So anyway.
We're done with the cover-up.
That high drama news conference set the
stage. Isn't that great? This guy says we're done with it. He knows that since Roswell, there's been a huge cover-up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've already been saying that whistleblowers that they haven't told us about are continually coming out to them and telling them more information that are directly in the programs. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of information they haven't shared with us. So
this is so big.
Mind-blowing experiences.
I keep saying this is bigger than aliens are nothing compared. I mean, not nothing, but
so what's bigger? You mean the fact that the restructuring the government and them coming out and asking for the truth?
Yeah. What's the big deal about aliens? The big deal is that the government has been lying to the American people for 80 years.
And that was the first video, the David Grush video, the first video that David Grush had. Russ asked him, saying, "Are you telling us that our government has been lying to us?" And that's partly why I feel that this isn't a part of any agenda, but it's like it's coming out whether they want it to or not.
Right. I'm going to show parts of that video after but let me just finish this.
Stage for the first congressional hearing on UFOs since groundbreaking whistleblower claims aired exclusively on News Nation.
If the Pentagon thinks that they're above Congress, they have something else coming to them.
That's true. The Pentagon follows the laws of the land. They are not above Congress, but for 80 years, they've run away with their own agendas, and I think some of that is selling these reverse engineering technologies to private industries and getting a kickback inside the military for that, for those secrets. And those secrets then belong to private industries, denying that to the American public. I mean, that's so huge. Okay, 1 second.
We told them we were going to do this if they continued to hide information, and ultimately, the American people deserve the facts.
Ex-service members, some with even more astonishing claims, will testify next week.
Okay, those were the people that are testifying. We just saw there, Grush, Fravor, who was the big guy in the Nimitz. Let me just go here.
Including David Grush, the whistleblower who has claimed the Pentagon is hiding evidence of non-human origin spacecraft.
Can you believe they're saying that, Joan, on national news? They're actually saying non-human. Isn't that fantastic?
It's quite a reversal from the poo-pooing of all of this evidence, which has been right in front of their eyes for years and years and years. I mean, look, we've had Stephen Greer, we've had Stephen Bassett, we've already had hearings, in Washington, D.C. that did have former Congress people in it, and they've denied all of the evidence that our people have had.
Not only have they denied it, they've ridiculed called them crazy, called them insane, called them hallucinatory. I mean, people like Carl Sagan and, what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson. They are saying these people are hallucinating. They don't know what they're seeing.
It's a huge gaslighting that's been happening to us,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and just to let everybody know, the reason why they're saying non-human intelligence is when they asked David Grush, they said, why don't you just say extraterrestrial? And he said, the evidence suggests that they're interdimensional.
Right.
So they maybe not just what we conventionally believe. But to me, extraterrestrial, if you're traveling through dimensions to get here, you could still be extraterrestrial and interdimensional. But that's why they're using the non-human intelligence. It's some intelligence they don't even know exactly what it is.
Now, isn't there some evidence that these are inner Earth also?
So that's one of the Wisconsin senators, the Wisconsin congressman actually came out on a regular YouTube channel, 2 million plus YouTube channel, where they played sports, shoot basketballs and hoops. And this guy goes to him, so what do you think this is? And he says, well, either we feel that they're either us from the future or they're very advanced civilization that's been on Earth for way longer than we have.
Right. I mean, this is
major. That's huge. Huge. That would impact governments. That would impact our science, our history, our evolution. It would actually change everything. It would change our textbooks if they actually let this evidence in.
Well, it's Joan this week, July 26th, David Grush, the whistleblower who blew the whistle on these secrets, is coming out publicly at a congressional hearing that will be open to the public that we're going to do a watch party about. Neil, I hope you're on the watch party. Me and Zinka.
My YouTube, right, too. So
yeah, we're putting on your YouTube. And so everyone watching can go to Portal to Ascension YouTube or New Realities YouTube. And Joan, if you want on your YouTube.
Oh yeah, let's put on my YouTube. That's the most exciting thing I've heard in years. This is so exciting. For all of us who followed the subject, it is beyond belief that it's actually finally happening.
It's really cool.
So we're doing a watch party, so everyone can watch along on these YouTube stations with me and Neil and Zinka Caro as we look at what's really going on as the truth emerges, as history actually, Joan, history is being made. I predict, and not just me, a lot of other people.
Hopefully they don't do a closed session, because the other times they did an open session and all of a sudden they cut the feed into the closed session. I really feel that, well, this is huge too, because before they're talking nuts and bolts, now they're talking ET life.
Right, ET life, reverse engineering, ET bodies. This is the moment that the disclosure movement has been waiting for 75 years at least. I mean, so let me just tell you.
The Pentagon denied there is any evidence of UFOs of alien origin.
Now, the more they deny that, the more they're pushing themselves into a corner, and they're still denying. Now, this is the guy who opened up the whole thing on December 16th, 2017, Fravor, when he was talked about being a pilot for the Nimitz and saw this, what they're calling a tic tac. And that was what was reported in the New York Times, December 16th. And broke the story open in the first phase of disclosure, which everyone marks as December 16th, 2017.
Also joining Grush, David Fravor, a former Navy commander who took video of a UFO, and Ryan Graves, a former Navy pilot who reported multiple UFO sightings during flights.
Graves was on, I think, the USS Princeton, multiple UFO sightings that were there for a long time. So they're all appearing in front of Congress to the public, hopefully, on July 26th.
I like the tagline on the very bottom. These hearings put censorship, misinformation fights at the center stage. And I think that's really important.
Also making the claim on Thursday.
You have something else? Sorry, John. What did you say?
No. Go ahead.
This is Burchett. He's been very outspoken, and there's something going on. It's not just the cover up of of the alien technology. There's
Oh,
something we have yet to discover that's going to emerge from this whole thing.
yeah.
Today on News Nation's On Balance that some pilots have been retaliated against for coming forward.
I trust a decorated war veteran who tells me that, in fact, hell yes, I saw it, and I've had retribution. Now these pilots tell me they'll be pulled off the flight line, and then they'll be debriefed, as they call it, which is BS.
You know what? If we found out who was intimidating these pilots, we would get to the bottom of that secret. But for some reason, no one's asking who's intimidating. Who are these people?
Yeah.
Name names. I can't help noticing his rifle behind him, but whatever.
Well,
Okay.
it's probably not even the direct people intimidating him. It's probably just people within the programs that are employed to do that.
Yeah, and who's giving them orders to do it?
Right.
Who's behind
Well,
all this?
Right.
And do you remember, I think it was in 1955, the colonel at a missile base came forward and said that the ETs, they had seen a sighting above, and suddenly all of their missiles, all the power was shut off down in that military base.
Yeah, that's Robert Salas. Yeah, and yeah,
Yes.
he talked to me on one of my Making Contact programs about, but that's 1967. The nuclear warheads were turned off when a UFO appeared above the Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana.
And
That
David
was
Grush
made-
validated that. He confirmed that in one of the interviews.
He did, and that was actually talked about in one of the congressional hearings by Mike Gallagher, who is also a Republican, very much behind disclosure. Let's just finish this news report and then
Do it.
Okay, that was it.
That hearing set for Wednesday morning. Elizabeth?
Wednesday morning. Okay, join us Wednesday morning. I think it's probably going to be usually at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And that's when we go live for our watch party. Lots of times in the watch parties, it gives us a chance to comment backstage about what's being said.
Mhm.
So we've done this in the past, me and Zinka. I'm happy you're joining us, Neil, Joan, and really commenting on what we're going to hear. I also want to say, just kicking off this whole disclosure afternoon or morning here, when this Grush interview came out, I was at Contact in the Desert, and I was able to sit down with the experts in the field and talk about what had just come forward. Do you want to see about 20
Yeah,
minutes of
see it.
that?
Go
Yeah, and
for
I'll
it.
just say that it was very interesting that, Linda said that something was going to happen April 2023. I feel she was right on point. This happened soon after she made that, that realization.
I know it almost came out when we were at the portal to
Yeah.
ascension disclosure. Yeah, that would have been great, but it came out the last day at Contact in the Desert. And let me just share this screen with you here. Here. So I had already broadcast this whole thing on my YouTube channel, but this is, do you see that on your screen there?
Yeah.
All right, this is people from Contact in the Desert. Hope you'll be there next year, Neil and Joan. And this is my little intro to on June 5th, this news conference, Grush came forward with Ross Coulter and the debrief article about the reverse engineering and the ET bodies. And I sat down that evening with the best experts in the field. And on the last day, June 5th, all the experts were still left when we got the news we've been waiting 75 years for.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Welcome to a very important moment in history. I have assembled with me the top experts in the UFO field here on June 5th, 2023 at the last day of Contact in the Desert, where news broke this morning about a whistleblower revealing secrets, now not secrets, that there's crash retrievals in the possession of the U.S. government, and he has come out due to a new law to allows whistleblowers to break their NDAs, and this is historic.
UFOs exist. The U.S. government found quite a number of them, and they are indeed of non-human origin. Those are the explosive allegations from a former intelligence officer tonight in a whistleblower complaint that the Inspector General is taking very seriously.
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
That was the blown, what, any comment, Joan, about that? Isn't that dramatic?
You muted, John.
Anyone who speaks against the media or the government is at risk, and it happens in everything. It's not just the military industrial complex, it's also the medical industrial complex. There's a narrative that all the world governments, it's not just the United States, but all the world governments have against humanity, against the people, as if we shouldn't know what is happening in the world around us.
Right. It is a crime. Like I said before, it is a crime against humanity, and we deserve the truth. This is something that Linda Moulton Howe has been talking about since she began her investigation. So she's also involved in this interview that I'll show you. So let me get back to that, because I think this is a really great kind of statement. This is an initial shock from people I was sitting with that I really respect, who devoted their lives to this.
Oh.
This is
to that moment.
Yes, exactly.
So I'll just say that in that video, he uses words very wisely. He said a broad UFO crash retrieval program. Like this spans so much more than we can even feel. And then in subsequent interviews, when they asked him about it, he also said, well, there's only a portion that were actually crashed. Some of them are fully intact and some of them are abandoned.
Right. Some of them claim to have actually put down for our own investigation.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on here. Here, let me just go back to that. I have about 20 minutes of this. So here it goes. Do you see that on your screen?
We see the back end of your video.
Oh, you see the backdrop of it. Okay.
The back end, yeah. So
okay, sorry. Let me just pull this up. Okay. 1 second. Share screen. There. Okay, so let me see.
Sitting here now, I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know this is, and just think, history will be made. I predict. We'll see, because they've disappointed us before. July 26th. So be there with us as we watch what's going on. Okay, so that was that. We saw that. And here we said, we got there. Okay, little repeat.
To a broad crash retrieval program. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Oh, wait, sorry.
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No.
If you're right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
The story about David Gersh, the whistleblower who just came forward, was first released in the morning of June 5th in the online news magazine, The Debrief, written by the journalist who brought us the breakthrough story in the New York Times, December 16th, 2017, Leslie Keane and Ralph Blumenthal. The mood was festive as the top UFO experts gathered to discuss this moment that we've been waiting for 75 years. Steve Bassett,
Sure.
You've been following this story for 30 years as a Washington lobbyist in UFOs. What is the implication? This has finally come out.
My sense is this, that there have been developments across all government and in media that have been happening for the last 5 years, heading eventually toward resolution of this issue. But it's slow because they're trying to do it with all the bells and whistles and everything. Setting up Arrow was difficult, and it's a slow process. Meanwhile, the witnesses who have been waiting.
Arrow is the latest organization from the government that is investigating and denied access
to testify in front of these hearings for years, essentially just got impatient. They just felt it was too slow, and so essentially they went rogue. And so while there have been a number of witnesses already interviewed by Arrow, and I assume they would also be interviewed by the Intelligence Committee or Armed Services Committee staff, these gentlemen went straight, I think, to the Intel Committee and said, we want to talk to you. We're not going to wait for Arrow to get more funded or anything else. And and that's fine. They also got permission from the DOD to do this, which means the DOD basically was willing to accelerate this process because it knows, as the Congress knows, that any more delay in this is not going to work. The public is now so aware and so geared up, they are not going to wait for the bureaucratic procedures to grind on indefinitely, and we need to get this done before the election starts. And so what Gaur did was just pop the balloon, and he did more than that. He referred to non-human intelligence, and there's now been several referrals to We Are Not Alone. These are formally taboo subjects. I can't taboo phrases. You can't use them. The coming forward of intelligence officer David Gersh was hinted at by Gary Nolan at the SALT Talk in New York City on May 18th, 2023.
The National Defense Appropriation Act, passed last year, signed by Biden in December. 30 pages of that is the establishment of an unidentified aerial phenomenon office, the establishment of looking into the harm that's happened to any of a number of the individuals, going back to 1945 and looking at the disinformation and misinformation that has been basically articulated over the decades. 12 US senators have signed on to a document that basically says we want the information. The creation of a whistleblowers program specifically that allows people from within, who I'm going to say this, who've been working on the reverse engineering programs, reverse engineering of objects, so that they can come in and break their oaths, but it's specifically just to talk to Congress and give that information in classified settings. And that the most recent one that happened was just last weekend, and it created quite a hornet's nest in Washington.
So Nolan predicted he knew that Grush was coming forward, and that's the hornet's nest he's referring to.
And so now the problem is that Congress has got to catch up. Meanwhile, the White House is watching all this and knowing, what are we going to do? Because the plan was to have hearings, worldwide testimony, people all excited, and then it comes to the president, makes a decision, yes, they're not alone. We're not alone, but that's not what's happening. And so now the White House has decided, do we act now? Do we ask the hearings to be accelerated, get these people in front?
Well, this was happened June 5th, so that is already passé. The White House is still behind the scene. Let me get a little comment from Linda Moulton Howe there. There.
Craft of non-human origin. This is the very first time that has been stated. stated from an official.
Roger Dolan wrote the book After Disclosure. Are we in the post-disclosure age, and it fits your vision of what will happen and also what rolls out from here, Richard?
It is fascinating, I have to say, and I wasn't expecting this to happen today. I'm just going to fully say that. Bryce Zabel and I wrote After Disclosure 13 years ago, and our vision, this is in 2010, was that disclosure would happen like an avalanche. So like some big thing would happen, a leak would occur, and it would become obvious that UFOs were real, and shoom, everything would just come crashing down. And in 2017, that did not happen.
Right.
So instead, you had a major revelation that ATIP existed, the Tic Tac existed, and it felt like disclosure at the time, but then things just kind of stalled. And I think what ended up happening, what was different from our original vision, is that I feel, anyway, there was greater centralized control over the media, which was one thing. But I think we also underestimated the ability of the establishment, if we could say that, to maintain narrative control over this.
Narrative control is key, and this is still what we're fighting for. I just want to go to JJ, has something interesting to say here.
The former astronauts, like Gordon Cooper, I work with closely in ufology, and of course, before he died, he wrote this wonderful book called Leap of Faith. I just want to quote something because I think it's very germane.
Right.
He's saying in this book, his testimony, but as I see it, our government is now trapped in a big house or box of old lies. It's going to take a lot of courage on the part of some future administration to say, quote, folks, our government has been lying to you all these years. Now we're going to come clean and tell you the real truth. And as I said, that's going to take courage, something that doesn't seem to be in surplus of in Washington these days, end quote. So we are here at a tremendous time of seeking, as it were, a greater harmony between the military community, the intel community, and also big corporations that are sitting on a lot of data and scientific documentation that I believe will open up a portal to the future. We can see harmony and resolution of conflict.
Okay, and then I'll go to Linda Moulton.
Thought this morning was Philip J. Corso, who wrote The Day After Roswell and worked in the Eisenhower administration. And he says and devotes paragraphs in the book to the internecine warfare in the Pentagon going back to the 1950s. We have internecine warfare in the Pentagon right now,
right,
perhaps the worst of all time. But what Corso suggested was that the implication was that there were wars that were going on inside over the issue of how much should be told the public or not. The irony is that today it hasn't changed. They're fighting internecine warfare in the Pentagon over all of these questions. And today it felt like that we were finally getting something that was true in terms of one man's experience, and that it has the feeling that this could go further. But
yes,
the same internecine warfare that was going on in the 50s and going on now, to me, the next question is going to be, will someone like Chris Mellon stand up to the plate and back what has occurred, sending signals to some people? This is not a time now to fight us. This is a time to support us.
I think we need more than Chris Mellon. Danny Sheehan is one of the lawyers there, Desiree. So I just want to wrap this up here. But, we need someone like who's presently in government. I think Marco Rubio, Christian Gillibrand, Chuck Schumer, they are coming forward. Finally, the major force in Congress is being heard.
Disappointment.
So you're,
it's totally possible.
That counting chickens thing, that's really good. I'm going to use that.
I just thought of that.
So to wrap up, thank you all the work you've done over all the years. This is where it's paying off. We've pushed government and media and people forward to get to this point here at Contact in the Desert, where 2,500 people just gathered for this very moment. And it's not just about media or politicians, it's about us. It's a people's movement. So, not to quote an old cliche, but when you see something, say something. If you've seen something in the sky, tell people. If you've had a visit or a dream or an experience, this is time to come forward. This is where, you're clear, that it's been clear that something else is going on. There is non-human intelligence visiting this planet. That's been stated in the paper. So there's more and more sightings happening. There's more and more visitation. People are having experience. The modality of reality is changing, and this is the beginning of a new time. That's it. Okay. What do you think? So, Neil, we are in a historic moment. I think we're in a great position. I think the Portal to Ascension gathering in Glastonbury will push people to realize the truth. Glastonbury being a sort of interdimensional portal itself. So, anything else you want to?
Before you jumped on, I was sharing with Joan that we've now hit a new foundation when it comes to the awareness of life from other worlds, other planets. And unless there's some sort of disinformation campaign that takes us further back, right? Where we're going to be in the next few years, I feel like this right here was an exponential launch from what the discussion was over the last 5 years since 2016, right? Yes. And now that this has come out, I don't feel that you can shut it away and try to come up with a disinfo campaign. And ultimately, what's really happening is, regardless of the drama within governments and Congress, is that people are now aware that we're not alone. Okay.
Yes.
And that awareness is a shift in perspective and consciousness that thereby allows for us to be one step closer to interacting and actual landings, communication with these beings.
Yeah, this is the moment of change for our whole culture and reality. Don't you think, Joan?
Well, I think so. Now that they're actually talking about non-human beings here, they could be walking among us there, but the fact is they're talking about it. And that will cause religious organizations to think about it too. You start to think about, wow, where does humanity come from? Where were the gods that were controlling humanity? Or what was the foundation of all religion? Was it even based on non-human intervention, basically, as well as our own DNA?
Right. I think you said before, this changes history of who we are. Maybe we are descendants from the stars. This changes our potential in medicine, in technology, in energy, like you said, that I said, like they're not filling up their gas tanks to get here. Imagine we are enslaved to energy. So imagine if we had free energy for everyone on the planet. It would totally change the economic structures. Fossil fuel wouldn't rule the world, or the corporations.
The rabbit hole goes so deep, right? Like, so what they're saying right now, right? Okay, Clifford Stone, we all know Clifford Stone here, right? So I got to spend some time with him, interviewed him in person, and he, was saying for decades, I was a part of a UFO crash retrieval, and all of his presentations, all these events were his experiences, right? And it was just so, as David Grush used, fantastical, right? The stories. He was for example, in Vietnam. He wasn't deployed to Vietnam, but every time during Vietnam, he was sent around the world blindfolded with his team because they weren't allowed to know where they were going. And then one day he got in a parachute, left the plane to land where there was a UFO crash site. And he lands there where the UFOs crashed. And he realizes that they took him to Vietnam during the war. So that they're in Vietnam during the war, and he wasn't supposed to be deployed because he's part of the UFO crash retrieval team of the shadow government. And the UFO was fully intact. And he goes to find around a hill, a mountain, right, to start retrieving some of the I don't know what he was doing, but basically retrieving it. And all of a sudden, he walks through the mountain and realizes it's a holographic projection. And he walked through it, he stumbled into it, and there's these hominoids with frog faces, humans with frog faces. And they're all in there, and they look at him, and they knew who he was, and they go, Clifford, what are you doing here, right? And so what David Grush has been saying now completely validates. I wish Clifford was around for this, because he really was like one of the few people talking about UFO crash retrievals. And so now, just if those stories, and if you look at Clifford Stone's stories, and if you see that he was a part of this team, and if it's got any truth to it, a rabbit hole goes so deep. Could it even be that we have ETs living amongst us in day-to-day life, and we're just walking around with them, and the planet is just so much more than even you and I and Joan can even fathom happening?
Now, the former minister from Canada said that there were many species walking around and in our government, in all facets of our lives, that we don't know about. So now we get to the, like, Men in Black. If they're walking around, what do they look like underneath their human body?
Right. You know what? I think, things have been weird on planet Earth the last couple of years, but reality just got a little weirder than we had expected. But it's great. It's exciting. It's no longer the same old, going your 9-to-5 job. Something exciting is happening. And if people are afraid, they're just afraid of what they know. What we have waiting for us is the unknown. And you can't be afraid of the unknown. You're only projecting the known onto the unknown. This is what my next book is about, Beyond Contact. It's about the excitement, the adventure of meeting the other and being wide open to an unknown reality that doesn't look like anything we've known before. That's what's so amazing. That's what yeah, go ahead.
No, I'll let you finish.
No, I'm just saying, that's what that's what this moment is perched on, some new realities. Go ahead, John.
I love new realities, but it's also perched on the fact that all of us who've talked about UFOs and the disclosure movement and what we've seen now and made fun of and called conspiracy theorists and really, you're a weirdo. Well, now it's confirmation time. This is actually for humanity to go, you know what? I've been seeing them for years. I'm right. And so there's something about having yourself validated by mainstream media, I guess, that is a confirmation. For many people, this is huge.
Right. In Carolyn Corey's movie, A Tear in the Sky, this guy comes up and says, this is the biggest I told you so moment in history.
Yeah.
Right?
We are the ones.
We did. We told them so.
Yes, exactly.
Because it started even before, before 2016, the WikiLeaks emails around that time. But the 2 to 3 years before that, they were dropping and releasing all the declassified documents online that were actually, a lot of them were released in the 90s, but they weren't put on the internet for us to search. You'd have to go to Washington, D.C. to find it, right? And within all of these documents, ever since then, I've been collecting documents here and there. But if you do simple searches online, NSA UFO, FBI UFO, CIA UFO, you'll go to all their corresponding websites on their websites, and you'll go to a file on their website that says UFO files, and you just start reading through some of those. Right? Oh my God. One of them is the crash from 1954, has like the date and everything on it. And I've shared this one before, a UFO fully intact, right? One of these ones with hieroglyphs on the front. And when they would move their hands closer to the hieroglyphs would morph like water into a different form of hieroglyphs. And that's on the FBI's website. It's been there for like a decade.
Wow. Well, the reason I found out about the Guy Huddle memo talks about a crash retrieval in New Mexico in 1950 is that the FBI was complaining that was the most looked at memo on their whole website. They said, why aren't they looking at all the crimes we solved? Why are they looking at this UFO memo? And that's how I find out. Look, anyone could look up on the FBI vault the Guy Huddle memo. You could see for yourself in writing. There were crash retrievals 1950 of 3 craft and bodies in the craft. So you're right, Neil. It's been out there, but people are just like, listen to what they've been told. Finally, they're being told now that there is something more.
Right. Well, do you feel that there could, because there's a few cases we send messages out to space, and a few answers. Sometimes it's come to the mainstream or kind of on our level that there's been answers. And one would be that crop circle, where we sent binary information out to space, and they came back with the exact same answers of themselves, right? So I feel like that there's probably some governments and organizations that are actually having communication through signals back and forth with ET races. That's quite a possibility as well.
Well, yes, some people say the reason this is coming out, and I don't know if this is true, but the ETs are putting pressure on those inside government to say, no, either you tell them or we'll tell them.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I don't know if that's true, but something is pushing the envelope drastically forward at this time. And even for me, like, I'm totally into it. I wrote the book. It seems like we're in a science fiction movie. It's like, what? You mean this is real? And it's like, of course they're real. I've seen them, but it's still, and like, I've really been waiting for this. And it's like, oh my God, this is real. There really are aliens. It's like, I wouldn't say it's shocking, but it's confirming, but it's still, the reality we've been brought up with is so controlled and so manipulated. When something outside comes into it, it's even hard. Like even the people I was talking to, Linda Moulton, Richard Dolan, Danny Sheen, it's like, what? This is the moment we've been waiting for. And can you believe it's actually happening? This is really an exciting moment. So that's sort of all I have to say. I have to go to another broadcast.
Do you have 2 minutes? Because I forgot, I haven't showed you this. Just yet. 2
show
minutes
me.
for this video. So check it out real quick. Okay. There's this mainstream YouTube channel called Cool Worlds, and they do things on quantum physics. And have you heard of the Fermi paradox?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so they did this whole video on the Fermi paradox. And my dad, he's into quantum physics, right? So he starts watching this thing, and it's the whole concept of, we know Fermi paradox, everybody, in a nutshell. We know there's got to be ET life out there. So how do we reconcile the paradox that we don't have evidence for it? Fermi paradox, right? So they did this whole video on it. And I'll show you what happens in the video, Alan. I'll just show it to you.
Let's see it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we're going to start over here, okay?
Yeah.
Like 1 minute.
You hear me say paradox, think conditional paradox. Okay, with that in mind then, what are the conditional assumptions that are underlying the Fermi paradox that we might be able to apply pressure to then? Fermi's original version, of course, was visitation, but even here, it's unclear exactly what he defined that to encompass. Does it include alien satellites, lurkers designed to observe us from afar, artifacts on Europa, or is it just limited to the New Yorker scenario of aliens literally landing their ship in broad daylight in Manhattan and stealing our garbage cans, which incidentally was a real problem in the 1950s? If it is just the latter, then the conditional assumptions that fall into tension here are of limited utility. Excluding alien spaceship landings represents a rather contrived and narrow corridor of all possible alien behaviors and activities. It hardly applies much pressure to aliens as a general hypothesis. In contrast, if Fermi imagined it to extend to lurkers and artifacts, then really there's no paradox, since we haven't applied much observational pressure to those. Alien UFO proponents would probably have a very different view about what I just said, of course, but the scientific community certainly does not have access to.
Yeah,
Alan,
that's
no,
great.
they did our conference.
And really, there's no paradox.
They put our conference to say they were like, people who believe the ETs have visited us would not agree, and they put our conference.
You haven't applied much observation.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's amazing. I saw
alien
it.
UFO proponents
That's
would
great,
probably have
That's
very
great
different.
Isn't that
publicity.
crazy?
I
So,
didn't realize that. You should put that in one of our, trailers or something. Did you know that? How did you know that?
My dad was watching a regular thing on his algorithm about quantum physics, and he goes, I was watching this video, and at 5 minutes you show up.
Wow, that's a good confirmation.
And now your dad knows that now my son is not off the beaten end. I mean, like you got validated in that moment that your dad saw you on stage speaking about it. Your whole current life was validated in that moment.
It was. I was like, holy crap. I was like, and I was really happy that they didn't do a hit piece on me in that moment. They just said it. You just said they would disagree with me. And so then I just did a WhatsApp video dump of UFO videos that just came out to my dad.
Wow. Congratulations, Neil. That is the I told you so moment for you. That is beautiful.
Right.
And that really, honor you in that, and the fact that your father, who you've had, like, you know, your own stuff with, it's come out and now sees you on television, on YouTube, being one of the official spokespersons for this new movement.
That was very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've told you, but like 10 years ago, my dad and I got in a huge argument and he was shouting at me and he's going, "What's up with all this alien stuff?"
Now he knows.
He searched my name online.
Anyway,
so many UFO things, you know.
I do have to go. So good luck with the rest of the
man.
day. Thank you guys. And
Thanks, talk later.
I'll check back in at the end of my class I'm doing. Okay.
Great interview.
Okay.
Have a great remote viewing class.
Thank
and
you.
go remote view what's off planet and all those ships.
Yes.
We are going to do that.
Oh,
okay.
Pastor People remote viewing. Okay,
Oh,
see ya.
maybe we'll do that. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, do that. Oh my God, Neil, you know, in a personal sense, how did it feel that your dad sent you that and saw you as one of the spokespersons now of the disclosure movement? Like, what?
It felt it felt good because it wasn't like making fun of me. It was like, and out of all the people in the video, that was on because they basically took public video because that was from PBS and CBS did a video of us, as you know, the trailers. I mean, the news pieces. So he took public domain video, and out of all the people on there, they chose me, who happened to be the one who founded the conference. So to me, it was very synchronistic. And I didn't really look like I was talking about UFOs. I was just on a stage like this, you know? So it felt good because it gave me an opportunity to share more information with my dad. You know, my brother-in-law, he's so into sci-fi, into ET life and all this understanding of it. So when this information started coming out, I started sending him videos, and he really wouldn't even take the time to look at it because of how busy he is with his life. So I'm realizing a lot of people who even have, you know, are into the space, into cosmos, into mainstream theories of there being extraterrestrial life out there. When you present this actual evidence, they've still been kind of brainwashed, if you will, and indoctrinated to believe it's not possible, that even though they talk about it, they think about it, they watch shows about it, they still aren't even going towards the fact that it is happening right now.
And, you know, people are so busy in their own life. And I think that's one reason we all have to work so hard, is so that you don't stop and research. You don't stop and put the dots together. Like, we're not trained as a society to like follow the dots and follow the linear, you know, the research, follow the clues that they give us. We don't have time. And I found it very interesting. So I love that you were in that, Neil.
Yeah, it was really funny.
I've loved watching what you've been doing now with disclosure, with bringing these experts together. I think you have an event tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, so tomorrow, just for everybody tuning in who wants to be a part of it, we're doing a webinar on portaltoascension.org. You can sign up. It's the first event there. It's Emery Smith, David Adair, Richard Doty, and Tim Tactics. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that. And let me also let you know about the flow for today. Because what I've realized, you know, because of the YouTube algorithms, I've come up with a master plan, is instead of going just straight on YouTube now, we're doing everything in segments. So we're going to stop this broadcast for everybody tuning in. We're going to stop this broadcast in about 5 to 10 minutes. And then we're going to go live again with JK Ultra coming on up. And let me show you what video that's going to be, just so you guys know. I also put it in the chat here. We're going to be live with JK Ultra. Such an incredible soul, JK Ultra, and the work that she's doing. She really has her finger on the pulse and does it in a really entertaining way. And the next presentation coming up in around 10 to 15 minutes is Breaking Free from Secrecy, full disclosure versus controlled disclosure. So go ahead and go to Portal Ascension right there. Just click that, go to our channel, and under the live videos will be the next one, okay? So this is the event that's coming up tomorrow. And basically, these individuals were all a part of these programs, right? And since this has been coming out, they, Emery called me and said that they're not telling everybody everything. And the people that he works with, Richard Doty, David Adair, Tim Tactics, are really inspired right now to come out and tell people even more stuff. So this is a huge expose on hidden secrets of extraterrestrial life. And from what I'm understanding, this right here, this event is going to be the biggest disclosure compared to anything else that is coming out in the mainstream. This is what they're not telling you. These are the whistleblowers in the program, right? Think about this. we got whistleblowers in the program. By the way, Portal Ascension, upcoming events, online events, sign up there. So we got people in the programs not coming out in the mainstream, not showing up as whistleblowers, but talking to people like Gaur, going on other TV shows, Clifford Stone, being in the fringe, not being held credible. Then we have who's coming out on a Wednesday. So interesting. Not the real whistleblower, a whistleblower whistleblowing for whistleblowers, twice removed. They're so genius in the way they do this, guys. You got to really look at it and use discernment in this. And then who are the other two people? Not people in the programs, but people who witnessed those two incidents that they've been putting around everywhere since 2016, that from all the people into this work were actually reverse engineered crap and not actually non-human intelligences. And they weren't in the programs, they witnessed it. So they're going to say what they witnessed, how incredible it was, what other people have told them, and what they found out later, and how they're ridiculed and even lost their positions and jobs within that, right? That's what they're probably going to be talking about, which is also twice removed from the actual truth. You know what I'm saying? So like what we're going to be doing here, what we're doing on Portal to Ascension, sign up at portaltoascension.org, view the 3,000 hours of free presentations. A good 1,000 hours of it is literally like all this information, just telling you stuff straight from the whistleblowers and individuals' mouth about what's going on and different testimony. But what we're going to be doing tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific is going deeper. I mean, the amount of information that's going to come out tomorrow is going to be truly mind-blowing. I'm really looking forward to it. So you can check that out there. All right. And now to everybody, I'm checking to see if JK Ultra is with us right now. I believe she is. So we're going to stop in just a moment. But what I want to do is for the next 3 minutes, Joan, do you want to make any comment on what I just shared before I just shared some?
No, I think you've said it all, Neil.
Cool.
I'm excited about it.
Okay, just to give you more context here, because if you know anything about me, I just love to like pile on the information, which is why it's so great that we have unlimited replay access to all of this stuff, right? So I just wanted to speak about, this is part 2 from my UFOs to UAPs presentation that I did. So in this one here, I'm not gonna touch on all this stuff, but let's just start with this. I just want to show, and maybe even JK will speak about this as well, the Antarctica information that came out and was a huge validation that came out at the press conference with Stephen Gaur just a few weeks ago. That was one of my favorite pieces of information that was disclosed. That in essence, Antarctica acts as a way station for UFOs coming in and out of our atmosphere.
Well,
hello, everybody, ladies, gentlemen, members of the press. I'm very happy that you're giving me this attention and this information attention because it needs to get out to the world. I will start, since we have to be brief. I have already given all pertinent information and supporting documentation to the Senate Intelligence Committee and AARO. They informed me that all of my information will be recorded for public record and shared with Congress. It is that important. In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I functioned in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The Ice Cube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I have provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster than light vehicles moving throughout this system, we're going to need faster than light communications. This is that facility. Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding. There's an ELF system at the South Pole Station that when I arrived, I was told it was off, dismantled, and completely defunct. In my work, I will rapidly just tell you, I had to figure out the circuitry for certain other repairs, and I found that this system is in fact completely energized, up and running, and being utilized with the other systems for nefarious purposes as well. The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system.
Okay, we're going to stop it at that. And if you want to check out the whole thing, go to Stephen Greer's YouTube and check it out there. But what we're getting at here, and the thing I keep saying, I wish I had a new phrase to say it, but the rabbit hole goes deeper than most may realize. What is going on and around us is huge. And the paradigm is shifting at an exponential rate, more exponential than it ever has been before. It's like pretty much a vertical line at this point. And as this happens, a lot of institutions, systems that no longer serve us are going to have to crumble. You know, all the ones that we spoke about in the last hour with Alan and Joan, these systems no longer serve us. And when we have a greater understanding of who we are, our role on this planet, where we come from, and the technologies that have been hidden from us, you know, we can realize that we can live in a much different, more harmonious way. And there may be some chaos and some turbulence in the beginning, but eventually we can settle into something greater. And that's why perception and perspective goes a long way. You can be stuck to your bank accounts and Wall Streets and investing, or you can realize that, you know, things are going to shift, and those things are also an illusion within an illusion, right? They have incepted us within incepted us. We're in a dream within a dream within a dream, and we're breaking free from some of those dreams to eventually understand a greater truth.
Right, the matrix, it's actually crumbling in front of us the more these truths are coming out for all of us. And you know, all of you who are here with us or who are going to be watching this, many of you have known this intuitively, or even through your own research, that we have extraterrestrial life here, that we've been visited for centuries. So all of you guys are already up to date, many of you, on what has been happening, and you are the ones who can help make it easier for the people around you. You know, consider yourself leaders in the field, for actually have the discernment to hear truth when you heard it, you know, to know, let it resonate in your body like this is true. That's what happened for me when I realized that I had ET contact for much of my life. But once I realized it, you know, I couldn't deny it. And I think, you know, I'm sure that most of the people who go to contact in the desert have had ET contact in some way, shape, or form to know that this is real.
Right, exactly. All right, everybody. So we're going to get into our next guest very soon here. So everybody on YouTube, we're going to go ahead and close out. Go to Portal to Ascension, click on our Portal to Ascension name right now, go to the lives, and JK Ultra, Breaking Free from Secrecy is there. So we're going to go ahead and move over to that stream right now. So bye-bye to everybody on YouTube. And to answer you, Jessica, I will do some rhymes in the end of this whole day today. We're gonna end it with some rhymes today. All right, love you all on YouTube.